Today, guys, we're going to go over one of the number one topics talked about, and that is how to properly battle in field. I know a lot of guys have a lot of questions and they ask them all the time about troops, about officers, but the number one thing that everybody needs is to learn how to fight in the field. And I want to go over some of the do's and don'ts that I have learned over time with some of the best players in the game. So stay tuned, guys. All right, guys, let's jump into rule number one. Rule number one is to know your troops, okay? Do not send out everything that you have to offer. Why? Because you want to utilize the troops that best benefit what is needed on the field at the time. So that means is if a bunch of people have a lot of heavy tanks, and you have a tank hunter, use the tank hunter. If a lot of people have faster troops on the field, try to utilize your faster marches. If people have mediums or lights that are increased, use those. If you're the type of person that only has infantry or super heavy or something on the front, use it to your benefits. And so that goes into point number two, know your place in battle. Okay, if I have this super heavy right here, look how slow this thing moves. This thing is super slow, and so is infantry as well. Well, what are the benefits of this though? Well, if you have a really good infantry, you can bunker it. If you have this super heavy, it can stay in an area and absorb a lot of damage. Now, it can absorb a lot of damage from things like lights that are out around going fast, or maybe the artillery and such, but that's where your comrades come into play. And I'll get to that in a second. But if we have enemies that are clustered up right here, right? And I send out my super heavy and it sits right here and it engages. And another person comes beside me on this tile and they bunker up some infantry. And another one over here bunkers up, and another one has a super heavy, and another one has a heavy. The slower units, what this formulates is that it's a constant fire on the front line. And what does that do? It does not allow the enemy to penetrate back towards your bases so that they can burn them. And it limits them, because in this game, you cannot go but from tile to tile. So when you enter that tile, nobody else can enter that tile. So when you create a blockade, in essence, you're not allowing them to pass. Now, why would that be relevant? You would be like, Grant, who cares about creating a barricade? Well, remember, units only fire so far. So a unit will only, like these tanks, will only fire 2 grids. So when you have a cluster of troops that are in the front line, all of the people backed up into the back, guess what? They're not firing. They're not doing anything. The only thing back there could be artillery. And that's whenever the next rule applies, is that the lights and the medium guys, they need to try to get to the back line. That's super important, okay? They're going to try to find the hole to get to the back line. When they march all the way around because they have the speed and they come up behind the artillery or behind those units that aren't engaged anymore, it's going to pull them away. And now guess what? You're on their back line. And that's super important, because what happens is that those troops start to diminish. They start, oh, somebody's back here, let me pull away. And so they start marching. Well, guess what? When they start driving and marching out, the lights and the mediums are so fast, they pull away fast. And when they pull away, everybody's scattered and there's no longer a cluster of power right there. And that's whenever you move in with your units to push a front line. So you need to know your place. You need to know your place in the battle. If I have really good super heavies and I have really good infantry or whatever, then utilize that. You don't have to be the number one killer ever. It's all about group team effort. Okay, guys? You want to be able to create a barricade and learn how to fight with the units that you have. And you also want to coordinate with your team. I know that it's a pain in the butt to go into chat, and half the time chats don't work very well or whatever. If you have a Discord, get on voice. Get on voice on Discord and talk it over. Share points to go over. R4 leaders create tags all the time. Each person's ability inside of the battle is super important. So what? I'm not attacking right now and I'm laying some markers. That job is important to show everybody what to do. I'm not attacking right now. I'm watching the map on the back line to make sure the enemy doesn't airdrop in or whatever. That's important too. Every aspect is important, and you have to know your place in that battle. That's my number one point. Now we'll get to topic number 4. Okay, those 3 were the main different ideas that I have for fighting inside of the field or whatever. The next thing on rule number 4 is that you do not want to cut off or block your fellow teammates. And what do I mean by that? Well, where you park your base is super important. A lot of people want to park their base as close as possible because maybe they die a bunch using up their reserves and they're constantly sending them out, so they don't like to have to march that far. However, if everybody parks their base too close, then you're going to be in the way. You're going to be in the way of a lot of people getting in. And the thing is that the more you create a channel, meaning if there's a base right here, if you can see my marker, a base right here, a base right here, then troops can only go in and out of that small little area. And now when you have a bunch of people fighting, the troops are trying to redirect and go around, and it gets really confusing and really messy. So you guys want to try to, be close, but not too close. You want to set your base up somewhat far back, probably about 50 kilometers back if you can, and push forward. And as you guys make advancements, you can move your bases up, but you don't want the bases and its location to become a hindrance. And you also want to create a nice distance so that you can create the barricades so that they cannot get back to your base and port you out. Because once, it doesn't matter how strong your troops are, guys, once your base is diminished down, any pack of 2 or 3 can come over there and hit it, and in 30 seconds, it's ported right back out. And guess what? You only have, 4 airdrops a day, or you have to drive way back from being teleported out. So the location of the base is super important as well. Okay, guys? That is super important. Now, the next thing that I see a lot of people messing up is not assigning the correct officers. Okay, so you want to know your officers and to upgrade your officers the best way possible. So if you're having, tanks, or you're having infantry or whatever, you want to pick the officer that's going to best benefit. All right. And I wanted to bring up Percy because Percy is an overall, with hers, she has one where her allied troops get a benefit from it. And so Percy is a very good person to bring into a conglomerate of allies to help them out with additional buffs and such like that. Also, you want to make sure that if you bring out artillery, because they're super slow, that you are somewhat close to your base. Don't bring your infantry out way out. It's going to kill your reserves. It's going to take forever to drive 50, 60 kilometers, and they're going to be easy for the lights to pick off. The guys with the lights, they're going to come, okay? That's just super easy for them. It's easy kills, and it diminishes your reserves. So if you want to bring your artillery out onto the field, make sure that you do it with your base somewhat close by. That way you can, try to counteract them getting around and getting to your artillery or whatever. And the next thing is that if you're the type of player that, let's say there's a battle way up here, and I don't want to drive up there, right here. So I just drag my march right here, and it's, walking all the way here. Well, the base is slow. It doesn't march that far. But if I'm marching all the way up here, and it takes me 10 minutes, and I get all the way up here and I start fighting, if I lose a single troop, right? Or maybe some of my comrades that are down by me, they lose a single troop or 2. What'll happen is most people will click their little army and they will click to train. And the thing about this is, because you think that your units are over there and you want them to still fight, when you click the train button, when those units are done training, they are going to set across the entire map. Okay, guys? They're going to go all the way until they meet up with your other units, and finally join them, and then your power goes back up. Well, guess what? Somebody on this back line right here is laughing because your single unit that can't fight, that's not even fighting anything, he rolls up to it with a light or a medium and he kills them off. So nobody's getting reinforcements on the front line. They're just picking them off, picking them off, picking them off, picking them off. And they're just getting free kills and you're getting hurt. So if you're worried and you're really far from it, go ahead and remove your unit. It'll give you back your reserves and your money and train it all new again and march it out. Because guess what? Whether it's one unit that goes way over there or all of them, it takes the same amount of time to drive. Okay? So I just want to bring that up. That's the other thing that really bothers me, of people just losing reserves over nothing. Anyway, guys, these are some quick tips and tricks on fighting in the battlefield. Hope you guys like them. Hit that subscribe button, share the channel. You guys are a blessing. Until next time, guys. Peace.